Hello and welcome to the Underhive. We are back with some more How to Command the Death Guard. In this series, we're going to take a look at every aspect of the Death Guard, so whether you're looking to get more out of your army, or you're thinking of joining Nurgle's dirty protest, then there's something here for you. In this episode, I wanted to take another look at the Plaguemarines for two reasons. Firstly, it was asked for in a comment, so thank you very much for that. Happy to oblige. And also because when I last spoke about them, I hadn't really used them with all the upgrades. Previously, I was running them as just action doers because, yeah, I mean, they're tougher than Poxwalkers, but they weren't really going to do a lot with bolters and plague knives. 5-man squads, if they survive to do the action, great. If they don't, fine, you've shot them instead of something else. But now, with those upgrades, they can really be a potent force. So let's dive in and take another look at the Plaguemarines. Now, my first point here, I don't think anybody's really going to want to hear, but it is what it is. I think we'll probably see a point increase at some point. Now, hopefully it's later rather than sooner, but I don't think we can deny that Plaguemarines are probably one of, if not the best troops choice in the game. Obviously, certain armies have great strats that interact with their troops and, make them really good. Like Harlequin troops can be really good with their, getting in and out of transports and all the shenanigans they do. They can appear very strong. But toe-to-toe, they don't go very well into much of anything. Of course, they've got some good shooting and they've got some good melee weapons, but they're not going to hold up brilliantly into much. Whereas the Plaguemarines hold up well into pretty much anything that isn't perfectly designed to kill a Plaguemarine, and they can dish out damage to really anything with the combination of weapons that they've got. So I think we probably will see an increase. I hope if they do it, that they just increase the cost of a Plaguemarine, as opposed to making the weapon upgrades cost more. I think putting them up to 23, 24 points per Marine would be still reasonable. They would still see play. I would certainly still run them. I would probably just have to cut a unit and then maybe throw in, maybe a Chaos Spawn or some Poxwalkers or something. So I think that is probably something we'll see. Whether they'll do it like that or whether they'll reverse the upgrade cost remains to be seen. But they have been releasing more and more units that have upgrades for free kind of built into the cost. So hopefully they do that with them, even if they do increase them. But with the bad news out of the way, the rest of these are great points. Now, I really like a 10-man squad over a 5-man squad for a few reasons. Now, obviously, it costs you more. So we're talking about 2 5-mans versus 1 10-man. Now, of course, the 2 5-mans, they can split off. They can go their different directions. But firstly, it's less bodies to chew through. There are many secondary objectives out there that require your opponent to either kill units, kill more units than you, or remove a unit from an area of the board. So whilst, yes, having them be able to go out in different directions is a benefit, it's also a drawback if you're into those particular armies that want to make use of those secondaries. Having the 10-man squad is that bit more difficult to remove, though it is more likely susceptible to a leadership failure because your opponent could remove 7 models, for example, and put you in a very rough spot for morale. But of course, if it's only that one unit that's in that dire strait, you can pay to auto-pass it, and that's often going to be worth the 2 CP to do so. Having the 2 5-man squads, removing 3-4 models from those 2 squads will at least put you in the position where you have to roll morale, and I'm very good at rolling 6s when it comes to morale, so perhaps I'm affected by my own experience there, but the 10-man feels better for me, even though it is susceptible to that leadership, particularly with demons coming out and then being a stackable -1 leadership debuff. You are running the risk of that with a 10-man squad, but as I say, having the auto-pass stratagem does go some way to mitigate that risk. But the other benefit of a 10-man squad is that when they do remove 5-6 models from it, you're still going to be left with some very potent Plaguemarines. The first 5 models that I would remove would leave me with the Sergeant with the Fist, 2 Cleavers, and 2 Flails. And you're never going to be in that position with 2 5-man squads. Yes, you might have, one Cleaver, one Sarge, and another Sarge, Cleaver, Flail. You've still got the same number of bodies there, but they don't all activate at the same time. So if we're in a 2v2 engagement, my opponent's got something important there, and I've got my 2 squads of Plaguemarines, yes, I can interrupt, but I'm only going to be able to interrupt with one of those 2 squads, and the 3 individual Cleaver attacks might not be enough to get that dealt with before my opponent can swing in and kill the 2 that haven't activated. Whereas having those 5-man left of the 10-man with the Sarge, 2 Cleavers and 2 Flails would mean that if I pay to interrupt, I'm attacking with all of that before my opponent then gets the initiative back. So that has come up for me a couple of times. I mean, very important. With just the Plaguemarines, I was able to remove a Demon Prince through an interrupt that, not single-handedly, but very importantly contributed to me winning the game. It was a bit of a mistake by my opponent charging them with 2 units when I had the CP to interrupt, but if I hadn't interrupted, it would have been a good play. So again, it's important to recognize that when your opponent is multi-charging them, because they are difficult to remove for all 10 models, you can get great value out of them, even with just a few models left. And that would never have been true before the free upgrades, because you would just simply not expect Plague Knives to do much of anything against a character like a Demon Prince anyway. Now, I'm using my Plaguemarines at the moment to hold my objectives of secondary importance, or importance secundus, if you like. So my main bulk and fighting power of my force is currently Terminators, particularly the Death Shroud, and they are making their way to that central objective to be able to force the opponent into a position where they have to come and deal with it. Now, not every map has 5 objectives, doesn't necessarily have a central. When we're talking about a 6 objective map, the 2 squads of Plaguemarines will hold my 2 No Man's objectives, and the Death Shroud and the characters will move on and put pressure on the opponent to maintain theirs. So the Plaguemarines aren't always getting a ton of work done, but they leave the opponent in the position where you've got to come near us because you want the objective, you want me to stop scoring max on the primary, and when you do, you're in charge range. If I make that charge, I've got a great set of profiles to deal with really anything. So whilst, yes, I do think they're very strong, I don't think they overtake particularly the Death Shroud. They may well overtake Light Lords in some lists, but I don't think they overtake the Death Shroud because that 2-up save and 4-up invul still feel really, really strong to me. And the ability to have that 1 damage profile into demons is very nice, because the 1 AP doesn't really matter anymore, obviously, against demons, and because of Armor of Contempt into those factions. But then for anything that isn't demons, you've got that strength 7 profile with the big AP and the flat 2 damage. So that's going to deal with a variety of targets. So I don't think they shut out the Death Shroud. I'm still feeling them as really powerful as well. But they do fill a great role of holding objectives in a really meaningful way that pushes the opponent to challenge them. And they're not going to fall down as easy as Poxwalkers would. There are some fantastic combinations if you want to lean into Plaguemarines. Arch Contaminator is a fantastic Warlord trait at the moment. It has been really since 8th, and probably before if it was in the earlier editions than that, but I've only played since 8th. It's always been a Warlord trait that I've considered. There have been games where I haven't run it. Funnily enough, my most recent game, it was in the list, but I was up against Iron Warriors, and my opponent was very kind and allowed me to refund the CP for that, because it literally does nothing into Iron Warriors. You can't re-roll wound rolls. But against anything else that isn't shutting down those wound re-rolls, again, there's a great number of profiles there. Many of them will be wounding on 3s against everything, if not 2s. But there are some there where it might be more like 4s or 5s, depending on the target. And so, as a result, you will be able to full re-roll and ideally push as much damage as you can through. They also line up very well with a Biologus Putrefier if you want to run one, because of course they can be the 3 models you select for the Blightning if they're in engagement range, and you get those 18 auto hits at strength 4, AP -1, flat damage 2. So even into Armor of Contempt, you expect a couple of models, maybe at least one going away. Say we're talking about Chaos Space Marines or something. But otherwise, we're not talking about Armor of Contempt. You're going to expect a few models killed with that. For 1 CP, it's equivalent of, the Plague Skull of Glyphilla dealing out a handful of mortal wounds and just removing a model. The Plaguemarines otherwise wouldn't have been able to shoot that turn, so being able to convert that with the Hyper Blight Grenades is very, very nice. And as it goes, the Biologus Putrefier may well be the model you pick to receive Arch Contaminator, so he can sort of double down on all of that. Bearing in mind the Blightning goes off in the shooting phase. It is a shooting attack. It is pistol 6. You're in engagement range, so it's definitely within 12 inch. You will get your full rerolls on the Blightning usage as well. So whether or not you're running the Biologus Putrefier, if you've got Arch Contaminator nearby to the Plaguemarines, the Blightning can still be effective, even just with standard Blight Grenade profile. They also operate very well with Morty, not only because he's got Arch Contaminator and he's got quite a large base, so 6 inch out from that is quite a large area, but on top of that, he can give them the Chapter Master rerolls, full rerolls to hit. So you're not really worried about the -1 penalty you're taking on your heavy weapons. You're not really worried about any other -1s. Harlequins have a lot of that, for example. I'm not sure if it's in melee, but they definitely do in shooting. But there are a variety of armies out there that, whether it's just in melee or an effect from a spell or a relic or what have you, but they'll have a -1. You don't necessarily care about that anyway on the bigger plague weapons that have a -1 anyway, but Morty's full rerolls make a massive difference into the efficacy of a 10-man squad, even if it's been cut down to 5 and we're just talking about those flails and those cleavers going in along with the fist. So overall, I've felt like they've paid for themselves every game that I've run a blob of 10. Mainly they're scoring to spread the sickness on an outfield objective, 4 victory points, great value, and then they're dealing with a unit. Even if they don't fully kill a unit, they're holding it up for long enough that I can escape on the primary and the opponent just needs to do that much that there's not really any point them carrying on with the game because they've just not removed enough. And that's the way Death Guard tends to pan out. Unless, like with that Iron Warriors game, you're an unstoppable force against an immovable object where neither of you lose many of your models at all. Realistically, by turn 3, turn 4, you will have removed some units of your opponent, and if your Death Guard durability is held out for you and they haven't removed too much of yours, it can just be an insurmountable position for some armies that don't necessarily have the maneuverability anymore to get away from you and carry on trying to get on with their game plan. So I don't think you can go wrong running 10, whether you want to support them, whether you want to just sort of have them as their own operating unit as a 10-man, I think it's a great choice. I can definitely see the argument for 2 5-mans, but for me, the squad of 10 has been working really, really well. And just remember to have those cleavers remain there to the end, and they can deal with characters or big threatening vehicles and monsters in a surprising amount of scenarios, even without that support. So, as I say, I'm never an advocate for bad sportsmanship. I would always let my opponent know what's coming if I can. But at the end of the day, they can see the profile, they can see the axis is the one you've left. You've told them that. If they want to move something into it that doesn't want to get hit with an axe, and you want to hit them with an axe, that's up to you. So yeah, as I say, I'm not suggesting keep it from your opponent, but if they play into it, you're not at fault for that. And when you absolutely smash them to bits with those axes, it's going to feel really nice. Well, that's it for the Plaguemarines for now. If you've got any other questions about them, please do feel free to let me know. I'm quite happy to discuss the subject more. But that'll be it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time in the Underhive.